So 13 most commonly asked questions in Amazon interviews for SDE roles. And let's see if I can stick to 5 minutes for this video. Remember, these questions are supposed to be for training purposes in order to help you to, hey, what's the type of questions that I'm likely to get asked in these jobs interviews, be it, a phone interview, be it an on-site interview. But by the way, the on-site interviews for technical roles are supposed to be 50% technical and 50% behavioral. They are trying to reach that balance. Now, on number 13, we have, tell me about a complex problem that you worked on. So the reason why someone would ask you this is because they want to see how you dive deep into that problem in speaking leadership principles at Amazon. Number 12, tell me something interesting you've learned recently. So they would ask you this because they want to see how you learn and be curious. This is the principle that's associated with this question. So if you read the leadership principle, understand it, it will become more obvious as to what's the exceptional answer, not just having any answer for these types of questions. Number 11, when you had to pick between different technologies for a project, right? So why would someone ask you this? Because they want to see how you differentiate between what's your decision-making process here. If I have to link this with the leadership principles, that would be I write a lot. It's one of the more counterintuitive of them. But if you think about it, if you think about a process that you took where you invited other opinions, where you took the pros and cons of each of those components, maybe you've done a beta testing for them. Basically, if you explain the process, that's explaining how you went about making that specific decision there. Number 10, a time when you sacrifice short-term goals for long-term success. So the reason why someone would ask you this, where you sacrifice the short-term goals for long-term success, is because they want to see your ownership of a problem, when you took ownership of something. Read the principles and understand what they mean. What's your most successful project on number 9? So usually someone would ask you this question because they want to see your standards, how you insist on the highest possible standards. So it's not obvious from the initial answer, but they might be in the follow-up. They want to see how that project was to the highest possible standards, right? Because if you're talking about one of your main highlights in your career, they're supposed to be the best. Number 8, tell me about the time when you were wrong on something. So the reason why someone would ask you this is because they want to see whether you can admit that you were actually wrong at times, and even more interestingly, if you grew from that experience, right? So these questions, especially if it's framed in such an open-ended question, if you want, it could be anywhere from I write a lot or deliver results. So it's not very clear what leadership principle they're asking you about, but to give you a pro tip here, that's less interesting compared to why they ask you the question in the first place. So if you get why they ask you the question, that's where you get the best shot at having the best possible answer, not when you know which principle it is. Tell me about a tough deadline that you had to meet, right? So if they're asking you this question, you are supposed to talk about a success story, right? So you're talking about the time when you actually met that deadline in spite of the struggles, and what struggles you had and how you overcome those struggles. So why they would ask you such a question? Because they want to see your ability to deliver results, if you want. Tell me about a disagreement with your boss. So someone would ask you this question because they want to see how you have backbone and how you earn your boss trust. So I almost always I pick an example where, I wasn't necessarily the right person, but I would highlight my interpersonal skills. This is the main highlight, if you want, in such questions, especially for these types of roles. Tell me about the conflict with a colleague. Exactly the same thing. Earn trust. Interpersonal skills here, if you want. Number 4, what's your most challenging project that you ever worked on? This is your success story. What's your most successful project, if you want? What's your most recent invention? Invent and simplify. So you must brainstorm, hey, what's the most interesting project I can talk about here? Number 2, why Amazon? I answered this in my previous videos if you want to learn more. And number 1, tell me about yourself, which again, I answered in my previous videos, and I have various videos actually on top of this. So hopefully you found this useful.